I was working as a freelance photographer, traveling from one small town to another across the Midwest. I had a project that involved capturing images of forgotten places, abandoned gas stations, crumbling motels, and any structure that felt like it had a story etched into its rotting wood. It was late October when I stumbled into a town I'd never heard of, Mill Creek Hollow. There were no signs for it on the highway, and GPS completely bugged out, but I found it after following a weathered trail marker down a dirt road. I should have turned around when I lost reception. I didn't. The town seemed frozen in time. Small wooden houses, a rusted water tower, and a general store with a rocking chair swaying on its own out front. No people, no noise. I parked and walked for nearly 10 minutes before I saw someone, a girl, maybe 12 years old, standing barefoot in the middle of the road. She didn't say a word, just pointed behind me. When I turned, I saw a house I swear wasn't there seconds earlier. It was massive, covered in ivy, windows boarded, and somehow it felt wrong. Like it wasn't built, but rather grew out of the earth. I turned back to ask the girl about it, but she was gone. Curiosity won. I crossed the creaky porch and tried the door. It opened with barely a touch. Inside, the air felt thick and stale. The furniture was untouched, but everything was coated in a thin layer of dust, as if time had slowed inside. On the mantel sat a collection of old photographs. Each one featured a person standing alone in front of the same house I was in. Different eras, different clothes, but each of them was looking straight into the camera with a haunted expression. The last photo in the row was of me. I froze. It wasn't just someone who looked like me, it was me. Same jacket, same backpack, even the same anxious posture I'd noticed in my reflection earlier that day. But the photo looked old, faded, and yellowed around the edges, like it had been sitting there for decades. I stumbled backward and nearly knocked over a wooden chair. My breathing turned shallow. I told myself it had to be some kind of trick, someone playing an elaborate prank, or maybe I had stumbled onto a movie set. But the dust on the mantel, the stale air, the rotten smell of wood and mildew, none of it felt staged. I snapped a photo of the picture, but my camera wouldn't respond. The shutter clicked, but the screen stayed black. I checked the battery. Full. The memory card? Intact. But nothing would save. I decided to leave. I wasn't going to wait around to become another vintage photograph on a mantle. But when I stepped outside, the street was gone. Instead of the town of Mill Creek Hollow, I was surrounded by dense forest. Trees taller than I'd seen anywhere in the Midwest, thick and twisted, their branches blocking out the sky. The house was still behind me, but everything else had changed. I reached for my phone. No signal, no GPS. The map wouldn't load. I took a few cautious steps away from the house, but every direction looked the same. Worse, every time I turned around, the house was closer than before. I swear it moved, not just loomed, but physically shifted. I ran. Branches slashed at my arms, roots snagged my boots, but I didn't stop. I ran until I could no longer hear the creaking of the porch boards behind me. Eventually, the trees opened up into a small clearing. In the center was a stone well. Its rope was old and frayed, and carved into the stone was a message: to go forward, leave what you carry behind. I looked down. My camera, my backpack, my journal, all the things that proved who I was. I hesitated. Then, somewhere behind me, the sound of footsteps. Heavy, dragging, deliberate. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see what was coming. I dropped the bag into the well, then the camera, and finally, the journal. For a second, nothing happened. Then a loud snap, like a tree breaking in half, and the ground beneath my feet shifted. I stumbled, and when I opened my eyes, I was standing in the middle of a long-abandoned parking lot. My car was there. The dirt road leading out was visible, and in the distance, the faint buzz of highway traffic. The house was gone. Mill Creek Hollow was gone. But when I checked the time, my phone said February 2022. I had only been gone a day, maybe two, but over 4 months had passed. I made it home eventually. I tried explaining what happened to a few people, friends, even a therapist, but they all assumed I had a breakdown. Photographer stress, one said. You probably fell. Got amnesia, another suggested. No one believed me. I mostly stopped talking about it, but I couldn't stop researching. I found old newspaper clippings from the 1950s, 1970s, even early 2000s, each about missing travelers in small, unlisted towns across the Midwest. Some were photographers, some were hikers. All disappeared. None were found. Then, last week, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was an old Polaroid, cracked and faded. It was me, standing in front of that same house, same expression, same haunted look. But the photo had something new. In the window behind me was a second figure. Tall, shadowed, watching. I used to work the graveyard shift at a regional emergency dispatch center in Wyoming. It wasn't glamorous. Mostly it was weather alerts, logging power outages, sometimes rerouting stranded hikers or patching through distress calls to local authorities. It was lonely work. Just me, a bank of screens, and the soft hum of the radio bands crackling in my ears. It was the kind of job that makes you see things, hear things. Most guys didn't last more than a few months. I'd lasted 6 years. We were connected to 8 towers scattered across the nearby counties, each one relaying signals from local emergency services. We had an automated system that pinged the towers every 2 minutes to check for downtime. It rarely flagged anything serious unless weather took one down. But on December 11th, 2022, Tower 6 stopped responding. That tower sat on the edge of a high ridge, right above the remains of a failed mining town called Grapevine. Nothing but collapsed timber, forgotten graves, and rusted tracks in the snow. Protocol was to wait an hour and see if it came back online. It didn't. So I did what I always did, logged the outage and called the field technician on duty. But that night, every line was dead. Cell, radio, satellite. No calls were getting out. I rebooted the server. Nothing changed. Then I heard it, not through the speakers, but my headset. A sound. It wasn't unusual on some channels. Weather could cause interference, but this wasn't random hissing. There was pattern in it, like someone was trying to speak or mimic speech, soft and broken, a scraping garbled noise beneath the fuzz. Then, just for a second, I heard my name. I tore off the headset. I stared at the headset like it had bitten me. My heart was pounding hard enough to feel in my throat. I waited a full minute before putting it back on, this time turning the volume down low. The channel was quiet, nothing but soft, steady white noise. I chalked it up to exhaustion. Maybe my brain was just looking for patterns in the noise. Pareidolia. Audio hallucinations. I'd been on shift too long. But then the log screen flashed. Manual transmission. Tower 6-0, 137 AM signal strength. Strong content. Live audio feed. That wasn't possible. A tower could reboot on its own after a power loss. but it never sent manual transmissions, not unless someone was there to operate it, and no one had been dispatched yet. The audio feed began auto-recording. I clicked play. At first, just more static. But then came the voice. Broken. Chopped like it had been recorded on old magnetic tape and left in the rain. Words filtered through, one by one. Male, low, echoing strangely, like it wasn't just coming from the tower, but from somewhere deeper. Don't come looking. Silence. Then again, he walks between the waves of sound. He hears who listens. I felt cold. Not scared, just wrong, like I wasn't supposed to hear what I had. I reached for the radio override to shut the signal down, but my finger hovered. Then the feed changed. I heard myself. A short clip of my voice. Something I had said earlier that shift, hours ago. Dispatch. Tower 6 is unresponsive. It played once, then again, and again. The feed was now looping my own voice, in my own cadence. Slightly distorted, slowed by a fraction of a second each time, until it sounded like I was underwater, drowning in my own words. Then it stopped. Total silence. I couldn't take it anymore. The silence in that dispatch center felt heavier than the static. I needed answers. The official texts were unreachable, and no one was coming till morning. So, like an idiot, I decided to drive out to Tower 6 myself. I loaded a portable radio scanner into my truck, grabbed a flashlight, and made sure my handheld was charged. I left a note on the console in case I didn't come back, just in case. It was snowing lightly as I made the drive. The gravel road that snaked up to the ridge was barely visible under the powder. My tires slipped more than once. The tower stood tall and skeletal in the snowlight. Rusted beams blinking red light at the top, cables humming faintly. As I got closer, I noticed the small maintenance shack at the base had its door wide open. There was no sign of forced entry, but the interior was ice cold, colder than outside. Inside, the equipment rack was blinking irregularly, like it was mid-reboot. The signal indicator flashed every few seconds. I tried using my scanner to manually connect. More static. Then, a laugh. Software croaky. Not amused, just aware. I spoke into the scanner. This is dispatch. Identify. A pause. Then, through the snow and static, came a whisper. You're closer now. The voice wasn't from the radio. It came from behind me. I turned around fast, shining my flashlight toward the trees. Nothing, but I felt it. Eyes on me. Not one pair, many. Watching. Listening. The scanner flared up again. He speaks in echoes and never leaves. Suddenly, all my devices went dead. Radio, flashlight, phone, darkness. Then, in the dim red glow of the tower, I saw movement, a shape, human, but not quite. It was tuned wrong, as if each step it took skipped a frame, like a bad broadcast. Closer with every blink. I didn't wait to see its face. I ran. I ran downhill blindly, crashing through brush and snow, not caring if I fell or bled. I just needed to get away from that tower, from whatever that thing was, whatever had been watching me, mimicking my voice, walking in glitches through the cold. By the time I reached my truck, I was gasping and soaked in sweat. I turned the ignition and floored it down the icy road. I didn't care if I slid off the cliff. I just needed to put distance between me and that place. Back at the station, everything looked normal. Lights steady, consoles blinking as if nothing had happened. The log file from Tower 6? Gone. Wiped clean. No trace of the transmission. No trace of my own voice on loop. No evidence I'd even gone out there. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? 2 nights later, while on shift, the phone rang. Not the regular line. the analog emergency backup that hadn't rung in years. I picked it up slowly. The line crackled with static. And then I heard my voice again. "Dispatch, Tower 6 is unresponsive." The same line, over and over, slower, deeper, like it had aged since I last heard it. I slammed the phone down and pulled the plug. That was the last night I ever worked there. A year later, I moved states. New job, new town. Thought I left it behind. But last week I bought a second-hand clock radio at a garage sale. Just something cheap for background noise. Late that night, as I was falling asleep, the static rose. And through it, a voice said, "I still hear you." And this time, it said my full name. This story comes from a woman in Michigan who started receiving voicemails from an unknown number, except the number was registered under her own name. At first, they were just static. Then they became warnings, accurate ones. Now she claims the final voicemail didn't just predict the future, it tried to change it. "I never used my landline. In fact, I didn't even remember I still had it until the voicemail light started blinking one morning. At first, I figured it was spam. My parents were the only ones who ever used that number, and they'd been gone for years. But curiosity got the better of me. I pressed play. All I heard was static. Not your average white noise either. It pulsed, stuttered, like someone was dragging their fingers across an old vinyl record. No voice, just that sound. Then it ended with a click. Weird, but I deleted it and moved on. Probably some cross signal. 2 nights later, I got another one. This time there was a voice beneath the static. Muffled, distant, like it was coming from underwater or across a long hallway. I pressed the phone to my ear and held my breath. "Don't go to work tomorrow," it said. That was it. No explanation, no caller ID. Just those 6 words, then static, then click. I laughed nervously and chalked it up to a prank. My number had probably been sold to some weirdo service. I even considered not going to work just for the hell of it. But deadlines don't wait. So I went in. And that's when the gas line ruptured. It happened in the building next to mine, an old warehouse used for storage. A small leak sparked a chain reaction. The explosion shook the entire block. If I'd arrived 10 minutes earlier, I would have been walking by it. That exact alley, where debris crushed the sidewalk like matchsticks. Suddenly, that voicemail didn't feel like a joke. Later that night, the landline rang again. Not a voicemail this time, a live call. I didn't answer. Let it ring until the machine picked up. Whoever was on the other end didn't speak. They just breathed. Then whispered, "You listened, but not soon enough." Click. I never used my landline. In fact, I didn't even remember I still had it until the voicemail light started blinking one morning. At first, I figured it was spam. My parents were the only ones who ever used that number, and they'd been gone for years. But curiosity got the better of me. I pressed play. All I heard was static. Not your average white noise either. It pulsed, stuttered, like someone was dragging their fingers across an old vinyl record. No voice, just that sound. Then it ended with a click. Weird, but I deleted it and moved on. Probably some cross signal. 2 nights later, I got another one. This time there was a voice beneath the static. Muffled, distant, like it was coming from underwater or across a long hallway. I pressed the phone to my ear and held my breath. "Don't go to work tomorrow," it said. That was it. No explanation, no caller ID, Just those 6 words, then static, then click. I laughed nervously and chalked it up to a prank. My number had probably been sold to some weirdo service. I even considered not going to work just for the hell of it. But deadlines don't wait. So I went in, and that's when the gas line ruptured. It happened in the building next to mine, an old warehouse used for storage. A small leak sparked a chain reaction. The explosion shook the entire block. If I'd arrived 10 minutes earlier, I would have been walking by it. That exact alley, where debris crushed the sidewalk like matchsticks. Suddenly, that voicemail didn't feel like a joke. Later that night, the landline rang again. Not a voicemail this time, a live call. I didn't answer, let it ring until the machine picked up. Whoever was on the other end didn't speak. They just breathed, then whispered, "You listened, but not soon enough." Click. The next time the landline rang, I was waiting for it. I didn't even flinch. 3:13 a.m. sharp. This time I picked up. No breathing, no static. Just my voice again. Calmer now. Confident. "You only have 4 days left. Don't waste them. You'll know what to do." Click. That was it. No context, no instructions, no riddles. Just a countdown. I tried calling the number back. Nothing. Still untraceable. I played the message on repeat, looking for anything. Background sounds, patterns, echo trails. But the audio was clean. Too clean, like it had been scrubbed. And yet, something about the tone felt off. Like I wasn't warning myself anymore. Like I was preparing myself. Over the next 2 days, the city started to feel different. I started seeing people I didn't recognize, just standing in the distance, not moving, always looking in my direction. A man outside the grocery store. A child near my parking lot. A woman on the 3rd floor balcony across from mine. Except there was no 3rd floor on that building. They never got closer. But every time I looked again, they were gone. It felt like someone or something was watching to make sure I followed through. On the 3rd night, the call came early. 3:09 a.m. "Don't stop the fire." My voice, again. "You'll want to." "But don't," I shouted into the phone. "What? Fire?" But there was only static and a faint whisper of something I couldn't quite hear, until I slowed down the recording. At the very end, layered deep beneath the static, was the same sentence repeated twice. "She dies if you stop it. You die if you don't." Day 4 came. I didn't sleep. Around 6 p.m., I smelled smoke. Then I heard sirens. I looked outside. An electrical fire had started in the apartment across the street. Small flames flickered in the kitchen window. A woman inside was screaming for help, her toddler clutched in her arms. Instinct took over. I grabbed my keys, threw open the door. Was halfway down the stairs when the call played in my head again. "Don't stop the fire." I hesitated. Then I saw a figure standing in the street, looking straight at me. It was me. Same jacket, same haircut, same eyes. But I was smiling and holding a phone to my ear. I froze on the stairs, staring at my double across the street. She didn't wave, didn't move, just watched, and then slowly pointed behind me. I turned. The apartment fire was spreading, fast. Smoke filled the hallway as neighbors screamed and rushed down the stairs. I backed up, confused, trying to understand what I was supposed to do. Was I supposed to let this happen? That's when I heard the baby cry. I couldn't ignore it. I ran toward the fire escape, climbed it, and kicked in the window. The heat was unbearable. I could barely see. The woman inside was passed out, holding her child. I grabbed them both, barely managing to drag them out. The moment we hit the street, Paramedics rushed in and took over. But something strange happened when I looked up again. The woman who looked like me? She was gone. And my phone? It had a new voicemail. I played it as soon as I got back to my apartment. "You changed it. Timeline fractured. They're coming." Then silence. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even move. The next day, I noticed people looking at me differently, avoiding eye contact. A woman at the coffee shop dropped her cup when she saw me. A man on the street whispered, "Is that her?" before crossing himself and walking away. That night, the landline rang again, early, 3 a.m. My voice was panicked this time. "You let her live. That wasn't the deal." Click. A deal? With who? I tried piecing everything together. The warnings, the deadlines, the strangers watching. That's when I noticed something odd about the last voicemail. There was another voice layered behind mine. I cleaned up the audio, slowed it down. A whisper became clear. Echo protocol breached. Extract her. And then my lights went out. Everything in the apartment shut off. My phone, my router, the refrigerator, pitch black. And from the hallway, I heard the doorknob turn. The doorknob stopped turning, but something was still there. I could feel it, right behind the door. Not breathing, not moving, just waiting. I didn't have anything to protect myself except the landline phone, still glowing softly in the dark. The voicemail screen blinked again. New message, 3:01 a.m. I played it. My voice, but tired, shaky. "They're here. You weren't supposed to save her. You were supposed to replace her." "What?" "I'm sorry. I thought if I warned you we could stop it, but you created a loop. They found us." I whispered to myself, "Who are they?" And the message answered me, "You'll see when you become me." Click. The door opened. No sound, no push, just slowly creaked open into the darkness of the hallway. No one stood there. But outside my apartment, there were footprints on the hardwood. Wet, smudged, like someone had walked out of a lake and into my building. I backed away, grabbed a flashlight. But when I turned it on, it glitched, like something interfered with the battery. Then the hallway behind the door started to change. It didn't look like my apartment anymore. The walls turned gray. The floor looked wet, old, like a hospital wing from the 1960s. I could see myself standing at the far end, but not me now. Older, pale, eyes black and wide, mouth slightly open, like I was stuck mid-sentence. She reached out her hand and pointed at me. That's when the final voicemail autoplayed. "To fix this, you have to take my place. That's always been the deal. One life for the loop. You saved her. Now you go back. It's your turn." The door behind me slammed shut, locked. The lights returned, just a flicker. But everything in my apartment had changed. No personal items, no furniture, just a hospital bed and a rotary phone, the kind used in psychiatric wards. It rang. I answered. No one spoke, just a recording of a fire alarm. Then the voice that whispered, "Welcome back, Subject Echo." That was the last part of her story. When investigators checked the address, the apartment had been abandoned for over 5 years. No electrical records, no phone line installed. But neighbors occasionally report a flickering light and the sound of a rotary phone ringing inside apartment 3A at exactly 3:13 a.m.
So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button so you never miss a new upload when it drops. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.